Okay, in this video, I'm going to take you through how I render a floor plan in Photoshop. So what I have done is I have exported this floor plan from CAD. So I've plotted it, I've popped it all onto layer 0 and made it a nice light line weight so that everything is going to look really clear in Photoshop. So what I'm going to do is I'm coming to Photoshop, I'm clicking New File, Print, View All Presets, A3, and I want my orientation for landscape. I'm going to click Create. And then from my Finder or Windows Explorer, I'm going to drag in my PDF or JPEG. I'm going to click OK. I want to open it on my screen. It adds it as a new layer, and then Photoshop in the center at the top has a tick. So I'm going to click the tick to say, yes, this is what I want. Now, I always keep an original and then make a copy of the layer. So on my right-hand side where my layers are, I'm going to right-click and say Duplicate Layer. I always keep the copy so that I know that that's what I'm working on, and turn off the original. And then I right-click on the copy and say Rasterize Layer so that I can start to edit it. Now, to render a floor plan, we leave everything, or I like to leave everything white except the flooring finish. So what I'm going to do is from my texture library, I have selected a few textures. So I've got the oak stretcher for the timber flooring throughout, and then I've got a concrete texture for my wet areas and carport and deck as well. So what I'm going to do is on my floor plan, first of all, I've got my floor plan layer selected. I'm going to use my magic wand and select the areas of the floor where I want this floor finish to go. So I've got I've got timber coming into my rooms. I'm holding Shift to add to the selection. Option to minus from the selection through my bedroom. Excellent. We always want to make sure we're going into our door swings as well. And so that selection's looking good. I'm going to come to the right hand side of my Photoshop, and where my plus button is for my layers down the bottom, it's a square with a plus in it. I'm going to click plus, and then I'm going to paint bucket a color into my flooring area. Now the color doesn't matter, it's just to indicate what I have selected. Command D will deselect. I'm going to rename this layer and I'm going to call it timber flooring. The next thing I'm going to do is select my next layer. So my floor plan, again, use my magic wand, select the areas where I want my next floor finish to go. So in this case, it's going to be my concrete, and I'm going to select the deck as well. Plus in the bottom right for a new layer, and then choose a random color and fill in that with a paint bucket so we can see everywhere where my concrete's going to go. Command D for deselect. Now I can see here, if I just use Command plus, a few things haven't selected. So I'm going to come back to my floor plan layer, use my magic wand, select in those door swings and edges, back to my layer 0 with my blue, and paint bucket in there now. Okay. I can Command minus to zoom out again. So I have my two floor finishes that I am going to use here, and they are also saved on my computer. So what I'm going to do is for my concrete, I'm going to right click on the image and say open with Adobe Photoshop. In Photoshop, what I want to do is save this as a pattern. So if you can't see your pattern icon here on the right hand side, click Window at the top of your screen and then Patterns, and this will toggle it open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this Rendered Floor Plan. I would usually call it the name of the project, and then I'm going to hit the plus, and this is my concrete, and I'm going to click OK. Then come back to my Finder, right click on my other texture, open with Photoshop, and again I'm going to add that to this folder. So now I can see both of those textures as patterns in Photoshop. I'm going to jump back to my floor plan here, and I'm going to select my timber pattern and drag it onto the timber flooring layer, and it will automatically apply it to that layer. Now, this might not be going the correct direction, so what I'm going to do on my layers on the right hand side, I can see a little preview of that texture image. So I'm going to double click on it, and I will be able to change the angle. So if I type 90, I can also change the scale. So I think it's a little big, so I'm going to bring it down. I can also type if I want to, and I'm going to click OK when I'm happy with that. And now I'm going to do the same with my concrete and drag that onto my layer 1, which I should have renamed concrete. Again, I can double click on the icon and I can change the scale of that. Okay, that looks a little better. I'm going to click OK. I am going to rename this layer just so I know. So I can see my rendered floor plans coming together really nicely here. The final thing that I want to add is I want to add some shadow effects. So I'm going to click on my timber flooring layer, come right down to the bottom of my layers list where we added a new layer. There's this little FX icon here, add a new layer style, and I'm going to choose inner shadow. And straight away we can see that it starts to add a little bit of shadow around our edges of our drawing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase that opacity so we can really clearly see that shadow. Now this is way too heavy for what I prefer, but it makes kind of the drawing look like it's floating a little bit. But toggle that down a little bit. We can increase the distance if we want to. We can start to see that it is looking more and more realistic. So you can play with these settings as much as you like. And again, we can change the angle of the shadow where that's coming from. Okay, and you can type as well. When I'm happy with that, I click OK. I'm going to do the same for my concrete flooring. So select the concrete flooring layer, come down to FX and choose inner shadow. And then again, we can see that inner shadow being added. I'm just going to turn that opacity down a little bit more. Click OK. And there you have it, a rendered floor plan. So now what I'm going to do is file. You would save this Photoshop file as a .psd so that it's ready to go. So you have it for the future, sorry. And then you would export this. You can export it as a quick BNG, or you can export as for a larger file size. So I'm going to do export as PNG. I'm going to save this onto my desktop. And it will be ready to add to my, it will be ready to add to my presentation board. Now when I'm just opening that image here so we can see this is my rendered floor plan. When I want to put this on my presentation board, remember you need to have a drawing name, so this will be a floor plan. And then for the scale, while this is still in proportion, it's no longer to scale. So you need to write N.T.S in capitals for not to scale. Then this guy is ready to go. If you have any questions, please comment below or get in touch. Thanks.